Okay, guys, I really want to, first of all, just thanks for jumping on this little round table. Call it a round table. We don't have a round table and we're all virtual, but we're all chatting about um, really how people are coming together to solve problems creatively. And so, again, thanks for joining. I just want to go around the proverbial room and just talk about who we have here. And full disclosure, these are three gentlemen that I know extremely well and have worked with closely for a long time. Um, Ryan Conrad is a music producer, songwriter. He's a director. He touches music and sound in film and television, major label artists, independent artists. He's a music maker. He brings people together. Andrew Austin, songwriter, producer. Um, he's again touched everything from major label artists, independent artists, commercials, television. He's a prolific songwriter and does it all. And Ross, similarly, in the music industry in so many different ways. He's Mr. Technology, constantly looking for ways to solve creative problems with technology. We work together on everything, again, film and television, commercials, VR, and can't say enough about the talent that's in this virtual room, but I thought it'd be a great opportunity to bring these guys together to talk about specifically one thing that they pulled off a little while ago while we're all under this social isolation, which is virtual song camp, a writer's camp that was bringing a number of songwriters together virtually to accomplish and to really accomplish a song camp, which is typically done with everyone in a particular facility, single place. So I just wanted to kind of jump right in and define the idea of a song camp, a writer's camp, and then talk about the challenges of actually being able to do that virtually and how these guys went about solving it and to create a win at the end of the day. Someone want to jump in first, but just give us a little overview on a writer's camp, a song camp. They are obviously happening all the time. Everything from writers camps for specific artists, for writers camps for trailers. There's writers camps for a myriad of things. But can someone jump in and
Yeah, well,
just kind of do
thanks for
that
having.
overview?
Sorry, yeah, thanks for having us, Dave. Uh, I would say probably the way I would describe a writer's camp. I've been to a bunch of them and traveled around to them. I think it's just kind of a way that you can concentrate a bunch of songwriting for like a specific purpose. So you can get and the advantages is that you get to have a bunch of talented, usually songwriters who will all be kind of focused on one particular thing, maybe like some of them have been for like specifically focus on syncing and licensing music for picture or television or film or whatever, and then other ones will be a lot of like major label artists who accept songs from other people and who don't like exclusively write all the material themselves, will have camps just specifically for themselves, so that if they have like an album release schedule coming and they need more songs for their record or something, they'll concentrate. They'll set up a concentrated camp where they'll fly people from all over the place into a specific, usually before this situation, this social isolation thing, you would usually fly people all over, let's say to Los Angeles or something, where you'd all go to a place and you'd all kind of, usually all the writers and producers will all switch kind of between rooms and then just get a bunch of different combinations going over a couple of days and see how many songs you can create for a specific purpose. And so, yeah, usually that has always been a thing you do in person, because you can then switch rooms and go to the next room where this producer's over here and these writers over here, switch rooms, and then you write another song. And that's kind of, it's usually really fun. It's usually really, really creative and really cool. And so I think the idea was like, could we still do that? And how hard would it be to still do that now that we are not, like, without traveling?
Right.
And I think we were like, it actually doesn't seem that hard from the top of our heads. Now, in fact, because people don't have to travel, maybe we can just do it, you know?
And,
And I'll let Ryan also is kind of like, was the guy who rolled the thing forward. So I'll let him talk about what that was like. But yeah, that's what a song camp is anyway.
and just so we can kind of be clear, the idea of the song camp, like you said, is to bring people together, to create that energy, to get that creativity flowing, to have that interaction. It's really about condensing those bodies in one place to try to create a
Yeah.
situation greater than the
Yeah,
sum of the parts kind of thing.
meeting new people, being involved in something, all
Yeah.
of that. And I think that's one of the reasons why it works so well in like an actual traveling situation. Is part of it was writing a song together, but part of it was also being thrown into a situation where you were comfortable because you knew the people in that room with you were also going to be good at what they do, but B, you were also in a new environment, and you were in Nashville or you're in LA or you're in London or whatever, and all of a sudden you're spending a day with a bunch of people and you're getting to know them on a human level and also write a song together.
Very cool.
Hmm.
And so here we are. Most governments around the world say you can't get together with people in a room. You got to stay home. I just want to go back before we kind of jump into how you guys thought of putting this whole thing together. Just from each of you, just a quick, set the stage for what your brain said, because your livelihood is seemingly disrupted overnight. Start with Ryan. Like, what's the first thought that was in your head? Was it, I'm just going to basically sit on my ass and do nothing? Am I panicking? Are you excited? Is it challenging? Like, what was the first thing that was happening in that head?
Panicking about sitting on my ass and doing nothing was probably the first thought. I don't do well alone by myself, work or without. I'm an extrovert more than an introvert for sure. Discovered that more than ever over the course of this. But then it was just, well, how do I continue writing? And I write a lot with Andrew, so I think part of it just started with being like, how can me and Andrew keep on working together when we can't? And then that slowly blossomed into, well, if we can figure out how me and Andrew can work together, because we're neither of us are rocket scientists or computer whizzes or any of the above, then maybe we can figure out how other people can work together. And we had combined amongst us, both of us have been writing and working in circles of the writing communities in different cities across North America for years now. So we just happen to have a Rolodex of people that I guess we trust and like and respect and wanted to do stuff with, and that I think they also trusted and liked, that we were going to try and do something that wasn't just a waste of people's time either, that it was trying to point it to actually, here's an artist, or here's a brief, or here's a way of staying.
Yeah. We were
Just
also, I would
twiddling
say,
their thumbs or just taking a shot in the dark.
we were also like kind of planning to do song camps like the ones we were doing anyway. So I
Yeah.
think it was all, like we had just done one which Ryan had mostly himself put together in Costa Rica, like just before this thing happened, which was awesome. It was an awesome experience, kind of like one of the first ones we'd done. And then we just wanted to, I think, continue and keep doing it. And as soon as this whole pandemic thing happened, we were like, oh, do we have to stop? Do we have to like put that on hold for like ever, or for how long? And like, to Ryan's credit, I would say he was just like, no, we're just gonna do it still. We'll figure it out.
Then we had to call Ross.
So Ross, what was your first thought? I'm locked up.
Are we already at lockup? Yeah, because
The realization setting in, okay, our usual way of operating is not happening. Again, is it, I'm just looking for that
yeah, I
insight into
guess
your emotional state at that moment.
I think so. I went into like adrenaline full prepper mode right away. And but that's also I was in the middle of backing up a lot of Grayson's data into the cloud at that point already for maybe a month and a half. You know, we started in January on moving a large amount of data, and that shipment of sending that server off timed out to I think like March 12th. So really hot on the heels, I guess, of the closures started happening later than that. So I felt like I was already in a headspace of like, how do we work online? And so I kind of got into a lot of adrenaline, if you will, to just do the push quickly to figure out the research. Because I think with software and the tools that you implement, there's a shrinking window of establishing a workflow, and trying to get everybody across a team to use it, including a song camp. So that was my headspace. I think I'm finally my eyes like twitching a little less this week from from that. But
So
yeah,
you're just a curiosity. Would you consider that adrenaline kind of exciting?
yeah, totally. I I could just see the gap of things that were going to need to happen. I guess like I was imagining all the internet connections out there, and you know, people like my mom that are don't really know how to use their computer but are kind of forced into that situation. And with writers, you get them in every walk of life, and not everyone is a track guy but now or a girl, you know. It's just, you know, sometimes they're performers, and we still need them. So figuring out how do you close that gap right away, and so that there aren't people like just giving up on this workflow, if you will.
So just on the heels of that comment there, which is interesting. So you've got obviously so many creatives, music, sound, or otherwise, work from home. So many writers are actually used to being at home working. But I noticed that comment you made is someone's a track guy, someone's a vocalist.
Mm-hmm.
Why was this time different in the sense that, oh, everyone works from home, everyone should be able to figure this out? Like, why is this a bit of a different scenario? Like, why wouldn't it just seamlessly go into virtual mode because everyone's used to working from home?
I don't. I think that the the pop processes so many minds coming together, and that is largely been done in person. And like Andrew would kind of to echo what he was saying, and Ryan, that this is largely community hub things. You know, like Toronto is sort of Nashville North. That's how localized these sort of music communities are, and that's because people can get together in these sort of institutions to do that. So but then there's the software sphere of that too. So I don't, you know, there's a community level that's integral, that set the behavior going into this, and then there's also an adoption of software. Like there are still many rural areas in Canada that don't have a reliable internet connection to be able to make music like this right now. So that's a challenge that's right in front of us, and that gap is getting closed right now, and as fast as we can all kind of catch our breath, you know. So it's
Yeah, I would also just to, if I could speak to that too, I would say that that question is you're kind of right though, because in a way, a lot of people can figure out how to either work from like a home studio or an extension of their home studio, maybe that is like, you know, not a not a piece of your life that you couldn't get to because you know because of isolation or something, you know, like it's a locked place that no one else goes into except you or something. Like there is, which is why I think these song camps and things were possible in our minds. We were like, well, it actually kind of makes sense that we would be able to do this. It doesn't seem impossible. There are some like potential software challenges or potential challenges with certain creative people who who aren't used to doing it this way. But in a way, I think that's why it made sense as well, because of that exact like nature of musicians and producers and things who are just in their studios solo all the time, you know?
Yeah.
So let's jump into like, okay, we're going to do a virtual song camp. How does it unfold? Like, what are the steps to making it happen? Where were the bumps in the road? Where were the aha moments? And just talk about some of the wins and losses, but maybe go back to the beginning. Like, okay, we're setting up. What does it look like?
Yeah. Right.
Ryan, you want to just unfold that?
I guess part of it really started when the company that we work for, Grayson, started figuring out how to do remote sessions with voiceover actors. And I've been talking a lot with Ross on that side of it, while simultaneously talking with Andrew on the creative side and writing side. And it just kind of, but it seemed like a bit of an aha moment where it was like, well, if we can tap in a voiceover, then there's got to be a way that we can start writing together as if we're in the room, rather than it just being like a Zoom chat or something like that. So the birth of it was definitely trying to figure out how we can virtually be recreating a track together, because part of the dynamic of a writing room isn't just being in the same room, it's also the producer hearing the nuances of what's happening behind him, sometimes listening to a singer work out a part and hearing excuse me, and hearing a melody that they might not be comfortable even singing out loud yet, is the thing that a good producer will pick up on and be like, oh, this is amazing, like no, focus on that, use that, let's go with that. So that part of it, and the challenge of how do we have a track playing simultaneously and all of that, was seemed to have been solved when we saw what Grayson was doing and what Ross was doing with recording actual VO and syncing it to picture. Now, we'll get into more detail on how well it all works, but it definitely started from like, if we can do it there, then we should be able to do this in the writing world.
Yeah, like the process of actually doing a co-write, like a song that you're writing with other people, which would normally be in the same room as these other people. The process of that is obviously changed, because you can't play together. At least up to this point, we don't have a system yet that is like, oh, we're all virtually without any lag in the same room together. So you end up it's kind of a one at a time thing. If somebody has an idea, they have to play it for you over there while you watch, and then you can hopefully learn, you can pick up what they're doing, and then you learn it, and you like and then you can all kind of write songs by almost like presenting an idea over the internet for a sec, and then they present back or whatever. So it's weird. It's kind of what it kind of means is that it's almost impossible to start from scratch on a song. It's like, it means you kind of have to come in with individual ideas, and individual work has to have been done before you start the session. And usually, I mean, that's a good idea anyway. Like even if we were in the same room, I would hope that people come in with some ideas or something to start from. But it's especially like, it's almost impossible, I find, over the internet to, usually when you don't have any idea going, honestly, we've just given up. We'll just be like, okay, well, see you tomorrow or something, like, because it just doesn't work. So, and then honestly, the other thing that ends up happening is, which is also maybe kind of a thing you could learn from this whole process, is that when you come in with a solid idea, often what we'll do on like day one of the session, like sessions become multi-day, it seems like a lot more now, just because I think you get fatigue being online, and you just get fatigue from being in a Zoom session all day, or a Google Hangout all day long. So you end up being like, we can't slog through trying to write a second verse or something like of a song if we're just 5 hours into a Zoom call. So you end up being like, hey, you know what? No pressure here. We got like a shell of a song. We got some pretty good ideas. Everybody go home again, do like individual work, and then everybody can come back on another day and be like, oh, I thought of this, oh, I thought of this, and then you kind of can again build. It kind of ends up being like kind of a multi-day project, and it might be kind of like not a bad way. I mean, it kind of that happens a lot anyway, I would say,
Yeah,
but it's almost like forced to happen this way even
in this
more. And it's
context.
actually, for me at least, I've had like a bunch of success, like surprisingly a bunch of success by just being like, okay, I'm not gonna make the song today. It's not
Yeah.
gonna be done today, and that's okay.
Well,
You
I
know?
think it goes part and parcel with the idea of getting in a creative flow and then walking away, recharging
Yeah.
mentally, physically, and then coming back into it, as opposed to, like you said, slogging it out. You know, we've
Yeah.
got, I mean, as humans, we've got like 90 minutes if you're in peak performance mode of like being creative. After that, it's basically you got.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that that comes out of this process, and maybe it's beneficial even if it's, you know, even if you're all sharing a studio together.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. I'm kind of wondering what from these the new process of doing this stuff, if I'm gonna be like, well, from now on, I know how this, like, even it's just so, I don't know. There's like a magnified or something. All these things, that all these problems and all these solutions become like magnified when you have this kind of difficult online version of trying to do something in a community or doing something together. So you end up being like, oh, wait, these might also translate when this whole thing is over.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Just how many people were part of this virtual song camp? Like, how many people are coming together for a certain window of time?
Oh, jeez.
The
Ryan?
first week we had, I think the first week was 22. By the second week it was 30. And I think now we're doing one the first week of May, and we're at about 41, I think, or 40.
So 41 people coming together under a certain brief or a certain mandate, all working with each other in real time, the same way you'd be walking into rooms. Like, give me just a bit of an overview on what's happening during that
I
window
mean,
of time
essentially,
between
of
40
the,
people.
it's
Yeah.
each room is essentially a producer.
You might want to back that up,
And
Ryan,
that
for
producer
30
is
seconds.
sending out a feed.
Yeah, you went dark. So you want to start that thought one more time.
All right. I think, what was I saying?
Each room is a producer.
Sorry, 19 things. Yeah. Each room essentially starts with a producer, and then you have a writer, and you have, a singer, and then what we would call a third writer. We tried to keep it capped at 3 people per room. We made it basically pretty open, but we suggested a 12 o'clock start time, and most sessions would be over by 4. On a busy day, we would have 5 rooms, I guess, virtual rooms running simultaneously. And then every room was briefed based on briefs that we were collecting from. We tried to reach out to American pub companies and labels and find relevant artist briefs and relevant things that are being done in the sync world, so that people were pitching on things that actually had a chance. And then also we would have a catalog of songs from this that we could then pitch on the artist's behalf, and our own behalf, I guess, for the next 5 years. So they're basically, they all got put together. Was easily, for the first part, was just kind of, we were going pretty fast, so it was who was available kind of ended up in the room together. And then as it started to come together, it became a lot more pointed and who's going to be good. And the next one, we're focusing more on songs, so there's a lot more of a conversation of what artist will benefit from having a certain writer in the room with them, or a certain producer, or who do you think?
Yeah.
So can I jump right off of Ryan's comments to virtual room? Can we just talk technical for a second? Maybe Ross, you want to jump in? What does a virtual room look like? What's happening software-wise? What technology is being used? Just talk about those virtual rooms and how people are actually connecting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Zoom has become the new virtual lobby if you will, of a lot of conversations that are happening right now. And they all have their benefits and downfalls. You know, Zoom's is pretty slick right now, and it's got a lot of their server capacity seems to be dealing with all this stuff very well. But the plumbing problem of working on music is that these things are actively suppressing background noise so that we can have conversations in peace as well. So music kind of suffers a little bit. So we had to figure out, how do you get your microphone signal into software like this and also be into your main recording software at the same time doing work? How do you work on something that you can hear yourself, that's not annoying everyone else? You know, there's a lot more needs when you start to work on music specifically. And then when you start to look at collaborating in the advertising world, it brings on a whole other sphere of contributors that need to be routed and kind of managed, if you will, from an engineering perspective. So it can be pretty dry, but it's this weird essential thing that everyone's kind of been forced to figure out in the music world, and that has been the most essential piece, is just the plug-in of how do you get your audio happening out of your DAW into a conversation. And I think once you're there, there's so many different ways to write a song, and it's gone down different every single time. One of the other weird challenges here is there's so many people that know how to work at home on their laptops, and that's one thing. But most people don't know anything about port assignments in their router, and getting into that to sort of enable a greater telecommuting workflow right now. So that for me, setting up the song camp, that was what it was kind of about, is spending half an hour with every person looking at how's your routing going, what's your network situation, and how do you plan on getting the best audio in any scenario, because someone might want to use Source Connect and sync with you in real time, full fidelity audio. That's what we see in the advertising world, or in the writing world, us just talking here, you might see my microphone in and out of sync a little bit, and that's because I'm on a Mac Pro that doesn't have a webcam, so I'm using my cell phone as an IP camera. There's a lot of challenges out there.
So were you playing almost like IT professional per contributor to the
Yeah,
camp?
absolutely.
Were you were effectively, I think at some point you're just online, you're basically on their computer taking
Yes.
control of things and setting up for them effectively.
Yeah,
Hours.
sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
I was just gonna say, yeah, Ross just spent like more than an hour, I would say, like at least combined on I let him take over my computer from his own house and
Yeah.
watched him go for a while.
Well, I want to, while we're talking about tech and software for a second, it's been more effective to just kind of spend the time with somebody to make them feel comfortable that their setup is good enough, because we're used to working with everything and restoring everything that we can with isotope and stuff like that. But there's maybe a lot of people that feel like Pro Tools isn't a great platform to be in, creatively speaking, but they're the furthest ahead right now in terms of actually activating cloud-based projects that have multiple contributors in real time that can unlock and lock tracks and have it all synchronized. And that's free. Right now, if Pro Tools first, you can do that with 8 tracks of audio. So for voice talent, for song, or like singers, instrumentalists, that's loads to send to you. And if you're a Pro Tools regular user, that would just be showing up in your session all in sync. And that does change things. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not pushing software on people, but also that they, if they have GarageBand and they feel like that's all they can have, I'm like, no, you can use the commercial industry standard software, and it helps us when we connect with you. So
you're saying that's something from the end contributor's point of view or the writer's point of view, that they sheepishly present what they have, meaning thinking it's not good enough? I'm just trying to get to
most people feel their setup is not good enough, and they have anxiety, and going into these sessions freaks them out, and I feel like I have gone through an amazing process of spending time with every person coming into the camp and clients coming into our commercial workflows, and just making sure that everyone feels like, okay, I get it, there's no voodoo here, it's just the internet. And
Right.
you know, um and
In the
that this
context of, I guess, in the context of being creative, that's a huge thing to put creative people at ease in this in the context of coming together to collaborate on something.
yeah yeah
Especially where traditionally they would have walked into a room themselves without worrying about their computer, their stuff. They just coming into a room, um, being creative, relying on everyone else in the room, not worrying about all those things. So being able to put them at ease on the technology side was a big help.
yeah
For sure.
For sure. I would say it's really interesting as a creative person. Like I've been, I don't know whether you call it lucky or unlucky, whatever it is, that I never really had a home studio other than when I like bring a laptop home and work or something, but not a proper studio until now, when I had to, go get a bunch of gear from the studio that I normally would work out of and bring it home. And honestly, still up to this point, I don't know how many weeks into this we are, 8 or something. I'm still like, I hate it here. Like it feels like I'm like amateur or something because of the like what I just can't do here with like less stuff. And I'm not even talking about like as a co-writer. I'm talking about like as a producer or something in my own space. It's just very difficult um to like uh, produce a product or like produce music that is, I feel like, is really good, just because I feel uncomfortable in this space. It's just my bedroom, which is a drag.
hmm
So that can be tough. And so I feel like, and then when you add two other people into the mix that you're like trying to work with and trying to, especially as a track guy in a room, for those who don't know, it's like I feel like what ends up happening is you feel a lot of responsibility as a track guy um, to be providing a vibe in the room that people are going to be inspired by, and so that the song that's being written in the room is being helped along by the fact that what you're pumping through the speakers all the time is like really rad, so that everybody's like, oh, I love this, like I just want to write on top of it. And so when you take your all of your equipment and technology and regular space away from you, it can be like that is the most challenging part that's been for me. It's just that I feel like I'm like
turned on your
just in
head.
this awful
Yeah.
awkward space. I kind of like feel like my shoulders are always scrunched up, and it just feels like an uncomfortable, not relaxing space to me. And that's like and like so uh, then when you have like, oh, but how do we also get communicating across the internet with other writers? Like, I'm just so thankful that Ross was around to like put that all, at least that side of it, at ease for me, technology wise.
So what I'm hearing you say is that it's not like every writer on the planet is going to all of a sudden be converted to an at-home person. That's not happening.
Not for
Yeah,
me.
not a chance.
And so at the same time, you're saying, what I hear you say is the environment is a real trigger for being creative, right? So
Yeah.
being in your space is that familiar place that triggers that part of you that does its thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're not saying that your home can't be your space. If you've made it your space,
Yeah.
then it's as some people do, then it's great. But if you haven't, or you're used to the studio
Yeah.
environment, or you you are like me and rely on working with other people most of the time. I'm not really a solo kind of guy. I don't really jump in and start and finish an idea. I'm more of let's jump off of somebody else's, or I have something to contribute, or let me finish that. So being home alone kind of sucks in that
Yeah.
scenario. but I do see some benefit in, let's imagine like you're working with an artist and now you've gotten together and you've put together some stuff. And as Ross said, you know, there's some really good technology where you can make this work out better than just two different DAWs talking to each other and using your home. But now the reality of like, oh, wait a minute, like we can have a singer in New York with sing on something and have the rest of the team recording it here or finishing a project. I think that could be something that I could see being a new norm, where you don't have to fly to LA to finish a vocal. You can just have Ross come into your computer and send a signal to us, you know.
From a real bird's eye takeaway in one sentence, the vocal booth can literally be anywhere in the world now. There's no limitations on that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a phone booth style thing in the future where you could go and you know, send your MP3 ahead of time and go in and sing and have it in your inbox by the time you get home with all your multi-tracks for your 20 minutes you were in there, with great hardware, great microphones. You know, someone's going to do it. And there's a need now, I think, to be able to just stay in your comfortable place. And, you know, even though the bedroom might be starting to feel uncomfortable, it still is the most comfortable place in the world and the safest place in your world, you know? So that's precious to music. I think there's something about, I've always liked bedroom music and bedroom production. So there wasn't a big hurdle for me to kind of figure out for me to keep working on music, but there is so much more music out there than bedroom music. And that most of the time bringing a lot of minds together is when something starts to become, important, musically speaking, or the more important a music project is, more notoriety, the more heads there are involved. That kind of stuff is like, that type of music is what we're trying to figure out how to preserve. The greatness of collaboration in real time is the thing that we're chasing here, and it's still exciting. There's still a lot of room to improve. Synchronization, like jamming, is going to be the thing we miss a lot, probably. Like jam music might become the new, I don't know. It's strange. It's strange to see that there is not really a solution established at this point for people to be able to write music in real time in perfect sync across whatever device they want to use.
There's a jamming platform that claims to be latency free. It's called Jam Boozle or something like that. So it's interesting that you say, like, can we get to a place that's latency free? So just run through. Did you guys just dig through the entire gamut of software to solve certain problems that you
I have
trying to solve for?
If we're going to put a pin in that, there's one thing that, like, anecdote that I would love to add here, and it's that in designing, like in the first week of this, it was sort of like figuring out, okay, what's something stable that I can roll out across a lot of machines that I know I can deal with the scale of what this could be. And where I started was with Source Elements, and I was going to use TeamViewer to get in and to just knowing that they could get introduced to it. There was no hassle for registering right away, and if they used it in the long run, they could buy it. But the workflow quickly became, cumbersome because of the internet. So there's some of the software decisions have changed and evolved. And I actually think that one of the most profound things was that the software that I was using to just get in to help people to install audio software ended up being the most latency-free way to work with somebody. Get on a Zoom call with them, hear them, use TeamViewer to control their machine, and I can engineer remotely. And that's something we're looking at. How do we do this more and better? Because that is it's just a weird kind of, I wouldn't have thought to start there. And it's just at the very end of it, I think it's the most effective way to really help the talent or the performer, if you will, not have to be so computer centric, is just take it over.
Yeah.
Take over all the control and make sure that you're getting the best signal sent down the line. That's it.
It's great. That's really interesting. Can we just touch on the reaction from the songwriting community, the artist community, when you reach out saying we're doing a virtual song camp? Did everyone kind of embrace it, going, yes,
Yeah.
thank you? Was there a lot of relief, or relief maybe the wrong word, but yeah, someone who's trying to figure out how we keep going?
It did feel like that to me. The first week that we reached out to writers, or the sort of closest group of people around us, I was even surprised that people were like, yes, please let me get back to work. It felt like it was like, oh, like it seemed like maybe there was a collective anxiety or something in music, that where people were thinking like, oh, are we going to have to not work or not write songs or not co-write, at least for, like, how long is that going to last? And it felt like we were quickly there to relieve some of our friends and our writers around us, like relieve their anxiety about that, because we were like, no, we're gonna help set it up so that we can still do it. And so we got like a really great reaction, and a lot of people were like really happy with the first week of it. I think what ends up happening is what I said. You end up, because it's not, we had to learn that, like, when you do these sessions, it's harder to finish the tracks, because you need to send files over to somebody else to sing, maybe, and then they send it back to you, and then maybe you got to do some rewriting on day 2, or maybe you got to even like write the whole song on day 2 still, like, like I was talking about earlier, where you might not be able to finish a whole song in a day. And so it kind of got a little bit, especially for the producers in the room, I think it got a little bit of a heavy load when we were just thinking of like, we'll just keep rolling along and seeing how many sessions we can do, and how many producers we can put into new rooms every day. And so I think we've decided a little bit, okay, what we'll do is back off a little bit on that. But it seems that there's just been like, it's just grown by more and more writers that we know who are like, yeah, I'll be a part of that. Like they're just thankful to get out of their I guess, like, into like some rooms, some virtual rooms, at least with other people, where they can get back to normal, or it feels maybe somewhat normal, that they're actually writing and co-writing.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think because we're taking the time to get some briefs together, and I think the shell shock initially of a lot of this, I know for me anyway, is just, I don't really know where to go creatively sometimes, or if you're an artist and an artist project, a lot of the people that I was talking to were just happy to be moving forward in a way that wasn't necessarily trying to write their next hit or their next song or whatever. It was just like, oh, okay, we're going to write a thing about this, and we're going to figure out a new way to do it, which kind of, I think, eased a lot of frustrations or a lot of worries about being able to do it. And also we're able to discover, without it being like detrimental to an artist project or something, where we can improve on it, and things like taking 2 days. Okay, let's find a better way to record a vocal. All these things came from that first week. And then the second week, kind of the realization that, okay, this is a lot on the producers, because it's not, like Andrew said, a lot of times you can get a pretty good sketch in a day, like 4 or 6 hours. You've got it down, everyone's in the room, there's no distractions. And I mean, I thought there was less distractions at home until I started to work from home. And it's like, well, no, there's exponentially more distractions. I used to complain all the time about at work, just being like, I can't concentrate. And I could concentrate way better at work than I do at home with children and getting in trouble and everything else. So all of that, taking it into account, it was definitely, it's one of those things where it's a learning curve, and it's like, okay, are you going to get studio quality vocals on the first day? No. Probably not. We haven't gotten there yet with the technology and the way that we've been seeing it unfold, especially not if you're writing it at the same time. But I do think that you can get a great idea and you can start to do something that's neat and people can kind of vibe off of it. And because of the way technology is today, because of the way writers are today, because the younger, up and coming people who want to be involved in this are learning how to use a DAW. They're getting their own microphone.
Yeah.
Did I lose everyone?
No, I've been really surprised by
I
the
think I lost you
reaction.
guys there.
You guys, are we here?
You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm really surprised by the reactions. I don't know why that was surprising. I guess it just seemed like, oh yeah, like as Ryan was sending out the email, people were waiting at their keyboard, responding pretty much instantly. That was maybe there wasn't a lot of crickets, if you will. People were ready to kind of figure out immediately how do they continue to do this, and it's probably because we all really love this and have like no doubts in some ways. But I do keep coming back to this idea that people undervaluing their current setup, and that just eliminating that when I was doing that with people on the phone, I could see their excitement to get to work in the song camp. They're almost like asking me like, hey, do you want to jam right now, kind of thing. So that was really interesting. And
I guess it was liberating for a lot of people that are sitting at home, knowing they could participate and they weren't a weak link in the chain, or their computer or their setup wasn't a weak link in the chain.
Yeah, I mean, the internet connections have all been passable when people have access to it, and then if you think about, like, again, if I were to go back to that Pro Tools first thing, that's twice the amount of tracks the Beatles had, and you're just giving it for free, and it's all cloud synchronized. So we shouldn't have anything that gets in the way of us being able to scratch some ideas in.
Okay, so let's fast forward. Social isolation's over, or social distancing's over. We're a year down the road. Does any of this workflow find its way into the everyday? I mean, we've talked about doing a vocal remotely. We've talked about not having to fly to New York to work with a producer. But, do you see it becoming part of the everyday?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Same with, like, I'm looking at, sort of telemedicine as a indicator, if you will, of like, okay, well, what are the latency is important for them too. You imagine if the doctor's only got 30 minutes, how are they going to get all this data off of you in a quick period of time? So that seems like it's going to stick around. I just don't see how we're going to, if anything, everyone just got really comfortable with telecommuting, and that's here to stay. I think people are going to be buying acoustic panels for their homes.
Yeah, I think from the like actual creative standpoint, like I was saying earlier, I think it just like nails down a few points of that are so important probably in a songwriting session anyway, which is like, you know how hard it is to write a song when you don't like do your homework or something, or
Yeah.
and it just kind of pointed to me. I don't know if it'll be like this for every songwriter in the world, but for me it pointed to the fact that like, you should do more individual work even in the co-write. Like often I think I just get into or you can easily get into, I'm co-writing songs every day almost. So I come into the next artist and I know this artist, I know what he's about, and so I know what we're going to do. We're going to try to write him a song that is for him or for her or whatever. And then what ends up happening is I kind of leave it because I have another one the next day, right? And so what this, it feels like, okay, you need to spread out your schedule. You need to like concentrate more and do more work on your own, on each session that you do or each song that you do, because that's what you almost can't not do that now.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to honestly, like, it's for me so far, there's been like great results from that. And so I assume that when all this goes back to normal, I'll like have a different way of scheduling how how much I do actual writing sessions, and a different way of working outside of the session, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe before we sign off, just talk about how your creative life maybe has changed in the context of this, Ross and Ryan. Just a quick.
Wow. Yeah. For me, I have been sort of chasing this dream of being able to open a session on one computer and open it on another half an hour later on the other side of the city. That's something that I've been doing for years, and I'm doing it in my own place, across two different machines here, and so that to me is like the constant of this is just figuring out how are we get these share ideas faster, even if it's from one
Yeah.
side of the house to the other. And I still think that if I'm looking at the workflow and things that stick here, it's people still want to get in the room with each other for sure, and still, people are still going to want to jam, and some ideas are going to get worked out easily like that. But really feeling that you can do quality professional work from home and without really sacrificing the whole process is this a huge win for me, and a
Mhm.
victory for our industry to be more global and I guess more inclusive. This, if the laptop was the folk instrument, that's sort of Skrillex's concept. I think the internet just became what the laptop was in some ways. Like we
Mhm.
are going to need that to connect all of us in music, and to say the least, obviously in every other way. But it's going to, you sent me that the web-based DAW the other week, which I looked at, and I don't like if that's possible with some startup company, then it's possible for the majors to be running in a similar way in short order too. So
Mhm.
very exciting. I hope everyone's healthy and safe though.
Ryan, anything to add?
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I think for me, it's been an awakening in, as Andrew said, in preparedness and doing some things on your own again, that you became accustomed to working with a team, but also then understanding that by being a bit more prepared, that the end result is better. So for me, it's a split of both. I definitely have loved being able to take advantage of spending some more time working on it and thinking about it myself in my own space. But I also desperately want to get back to the other side of it, which is to be in a room and working it out. But I think this will change the way that I work forever, in the fact that I don't always feel like I need to be in that room all of the time anymore.
Very cool. Do you guys know of anyone else doing these virtual writing camps?
Yeah, Concord in the US did one.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure other people are.
well, I've been doing this. I have done a spotting session for a feature. I've done sound design. I've been writing music myself. I've been just trying to squeeze that stuff in wherever, and it's profound across the board. I'm very curious to hear a conversation like this in the film industry and the advertising industry, and see where the overlap is. And I bet you there's a great discussion there.
I'm also sure lots of people have walked away from this and are having their own camps with the people that they meet and
Yeah.
work with in these situations. So,
Well, if you can be,
I think we also opened up a lot of eyes.
Yeah, if you can be a ripple effect in the industry, it's a huge
Yeah.
win. Obviously, that energy goes a long way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, gentlemen, thanks for the time. I appreciate it, and I think a lot of other people will love to hear this conversation and appreciate it as well.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
a lot.